Couple of tips or tricks that I have picked up here using Zoom with students where we're doing our virtual meetings. Some of the settings that I have found to be useful, I just want to go over those real quick. If you're on your main Zoom page, if I scroll past where my meetings are set up and go down to settings, a lot of these settings will help every time you set up a meeting, they'll already be preset that way rather than having to check mark them every time. The three biggest ones that I have found are definitely a necessary during a class, have to do with chat, two of them with chat and one of them with screen sharing. So as I'm scrolling down here, when I have some options here, you can allow participants to send a message to everybody else. I think that's useful as a class chat, but what I do is I uncheck the private chat. That allows me to make sure that students aren't having private messages back and forth that I may or may not want them to have to monitor. And then if I scroll down to auto saving chats, I always like to just have a written record of everything that's going on. So auto save those chats as part of my record. And then the third thing that I like to do is modify my screen sharing. And I mentioned this in one of my other tutorials. I like to set this up as host only. Otherwise, all of your students within the class can share things out to the rest of the class. You can, of course, change that in the middle of one of your presentations or one of your meetings, but it's always nice to have this set up ahead of time this way. So if I go to one of my meetings and set that up and get that rolling here, you'll see what this looks like in the middle of a chat. So make sure I click open Zoom. A lot of people get stuck on this launching page. And once it opens up my chat, since I don't have anybody else attached here, it's going to ask me, or nobody's going to appear here. But two first things I do right away is I click manage participants and I open up my chat window over here on the right side. That gives me a lot of different tools. When I'm working with a whole class all at once, I will immediately mute everybody all at once. And you can run your class one of two different ways. Either allow your participants to unmute themselves if they have the correct expectations at the beginning that they only mute and unmute while they're being called on, or you can uncheck that. And that way, when you ask a question out to your class, they have to raise their hand. They will actually have little tools over here underneath participant, same window, that is a hand raise. And then you can manually click on unmuting whoever it is you would like to have talk at that point. So you have control over that. Something else I like to do is right here, my screen share, there's a little teeny button right next to it, this little arrow. If I click on that, I can modify that sharing option. If I accidentally left on or I want to turn on the ability for my students to share their screens, I can click on these advanced and modify these share settings in the middle of a chat. So if you forgot to do that and suddenly screens are popping up and everyone's sharing everything, you can modify that right in the middle of your chat and take that over. Those are the three biggest tips that I have found here so far using this, and good luck and have fun.